Hello everyone. So we'll begin with the presentation. The time is almost up. Um, so I will first of all I welcome you all to Scienceoverse. Thank you so much for joining today's talk. Myself Nilesh Mandikar and I am coordinator at the Department of Astrobiology at Scienceoverse. So we at Scienceoverse have a vision to create a scientific environment or community to provide enough resources and awareness for all the science enthusiasts and upcoming generation to pursue their careers in any fields of science. One of its objectives is to build an educated society by enhancing the scientific mindset among the new generation, as well as to develop the human race and nature scientifically. So, our today's talk, as you can see from the screen, is nothing but astrobiology, life looks for life. So, most of you might have a basic idea of what astrobiology is, or even if you don't have, we will surely try to cover all the basic information and introduction to astrobiology. So our today's talk is delivered by Mr. Akash Ghoshal. He's an coordinator at the Department of Astrobiology over here at Scienceoverse. So he will be delivering this talk on astrobiology, life looks for life. So basically, we are going to cover all the basic information about astrobiology. And at the end of the session, if you have any questions related to the presentation or even astrobiology, you can ask your queries. Or if you can, during the presentation, if you have any queries, just type it in the chat box, and we'll sure definitely answer all your queries at the end of the presentation. So I will now hand over the session to Mr. Akash. The stage is yours. You can begin with the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Uh, First question I want to ask you all: how many of you are really excited for the topic? Please show by the raise of hands. Wow, looks like everybody is excited. That's great. So let's begin. Okay, I will be switching from the presentation to this meet sometimes whenever I ask some questions or I ask to raise hands. Because I am just curious about you all. So sometimes this screen will be on full screen, sometimes it will be not. So just bear with that. So how many of you have at least a basic familiarity with the term astrobiology? Anyone? Okay, so looks like the term is fairly new to many of you. So here we go. Basically, astrobiology is the study of life in the universe. Now, life in the universe, focus on this term in the universe. There is one misconception that almost most of the people have, that astrobiology is the study of life on other planets. These two statements are not exactly the same. Why? Let's see. This small term in the universe includes on any planet around any star like us, we are one. Then on any moon around any planet. Recently, after the popularity of some biosignatures or preliminary biosignatures on Titan, the moon of Saturn, this is also fairly obvious. Now comes the less obvious part, which people don't generally talk about. On any starless planet. Now, see, rogue planets are the planets that wander across the galaxies and they don't really orbit a particular star. So, they don't have starlight, so they are very, very cold, which is why we have this intuitive thought that, okay, if it is very cold, then probably life is not really possible. The thing is, life has a very, very resilient nature, as we will see. Life can make its way through lots of hardships and disasters, even things that we can't think of. So it will be a bit premature to discard this idea of life on rogue planets. Okay, then there is a fourth place where life might be found, and this is the most bizarre, in my opinion, is the most bizarre and mind boggling hypothesis stated by some scientists on a paper. That is inside the core of stars. Now, This topic I will cover in detail, a little bit of detail, towards the end of this presentation. So stay tuned, because this, I don't think any one of you want to miss this particular topic. Okay, so these 4 points were about where life can be found in the universe. Now, that in the universe, the term also asks when. So there might be life that once existed but now do not exist. Now, these lives will definitely be very tough to deduce or find out, because even if they were very technologically advanced, their technology, there will be no one to use those technology now. So this is the type of life that will be very difficult to find, and probably we won't make any progress until we physically start visiting to other stars. Then there are lives like us that once existed and still exists. This is the most probable one that we will find in the foreseeable future. That's because fairly obvious that if we are ever to make any contact with any civilization, if they are advanced, then if they are like us, they will probably figure out a way to go out of their planet before their star dies out. So even if we find a little less advanced life, this is the one that holds most probability for any type of life that we find. Now, when I'm saying probability, I want you all to focus on the fact that probability doesn't guarantee anything. We might find out a life form that's much advanced than us, and we might expect that they will flourish way longer, but might not. Then there are lives that still exists but shall die out in the foreseeable future. Now, what do I mean by this? The stars are not eternal. Every star has a lifetime. The star lives through a particular time and then it explodes. Till right now, if there is such an explosion, suppose 10 to 15 light years away, we cannot survive that explosion. So you can guess that the explosion of star is very, very powerful. Now, if our sun was to explode within suppose 100 years, there would have probably been nothing to do for us, and we just would have to wait for our demise. Luckily, that won't happen. But we are lucky doesn't mean everyone else in this universe will be lucky. Might be that some such beings are facing this exact stuff that I said. They know their star shall explode, but they are not yet that advanced to escape 10 to 15 light years away from the star. This completes where and when. In the universe also includes what that life should be made of. We are made of carbon based molecules. Almost all the molecules in our body, whatever machinery is there in our body, is made of carbon. That's probably the most likely life base we will find. Why am I saying so? When we look at the dust clouds that are floating between the stars, those interstellar dust clouds are filled with carbon based complex molecules. Those complex molecules are definitely not living, but they are everywhere. So, this overwhelming amount of carbon based molecules suggests that probably, probably most of the life forms that eventually arise will be based on carbon. Carbon has a tetravalency, silicon has a tetravalency. So, it's very premature to rule out silicon based life forms. They might exist, even though silicon can't really form long polymers like carbon, but still, we can't rule out. And then, of course, the most bizarre one inside the core of star, that will be made by something that none of you have probably heard. Now, I'll exit from here and I'll ask you all, how many of you have heard, or at least heard the possibility that magnetic monopoles might exist? Raise your hands, please. How many of you have not heard? How many of you think magnetic monopoles cannot exist? Please raise your hand, don't hesitate, because this is something that we study from elementary school, that magnetic monopoles do not exist. Whenever we cut a magnet, that half magnet also has two poles. Okay, yeah, so this is a very popular notion, and probably it's right. Probably it's right, but a paper claims that magnetic monopoles might exist. I'll cover this in details towards the end, so just stay tuned. And okay, this magnetic monopole based life I want to cover in full detail, so I won't talk much about it here, or else you all will get a spoiler. Now, have a look at this picture. The left one is primitive Earth, or the Earth that is just formed, and the right one is the Earth that we live on currently. That primitive Earth, as you can see, still has some molten portions of land somewhere, and probably it has water here and there, but a very thick atmosphere compared to present Earth. Now, all of these do have impact on life. Probably you all have heard that atmospheres are manipulated by life. That too will come in. The loveliest thing is, today there are some 8.7 million species already confirmed. So on that right side Earth that you see, there are 8.7 million species, and among each of those, there are more than several million of each individual species. Some of them even more than billions. Even just we humans just crossed 8 billion population few days ago. The left Earth has almost no life at all. Yeah, the left one is an artistic representation. Nobody really went there and clicked a picture. But the right one is a real picture clicked from spacecrafts. So this left Earth has no life at all. Then, by accident, an RNA molecule was formed. There has been several evidences that we know there was a single RNA molecule that was formed on this primitive Earth. It was not like several spots of Earth where different independently RNA molecules formed. It was a single spot where RNA molecules formed, and all of us, we humans, these 8.7 million species that exist, everything that we know of have come from that single RNA. Now, today is a day when, if you look at any random spot on the planet, any random spot, there is not a single spot where there exists no life at all. In the air, there are microbes, lots and lots of microbes. Microbes, at least, have literally conquered the planet. There are microbes at the top of Mount Everest. There are microbes at the hottest deserts, at the coldest deserts, at the deepest point of Mariana Trench. Literally every point on this planet is literally every point on this planet is filled with life. Now, 8.7 million species, and some of those have billions of population. All of these count for just just 0.017% of all life that ever existed on planet Earth. I calculated this before making the presentation. This is the accurate data up to date. Now, this 8.7 million species, that number, they do say that it's not all. 8.7 million species are confirmed, and then estimate says that 7.5 million, probably 7.5 million, are yet to be confirmed. So you can see how an overwhelming number of living creatures are there on this planet. So it now asks a very deep philosophical question that has been around for ever since we existed. That question is, who are we in fact? And by we, I don't mean we humans. By we, I mean collectively all life on Earth. Who are we in fact? What is life in fact? So far, there has not been any unambiguous and particular definition of what we can consider to be living. So this is a question that we are still searching for. When we shall get the answer, no idea at all. However, there is another question that has been with us for not more than a few centuries. It's a very curious question, and probably many of you have asked when you have read about stars and planets. And by some link that we did not realize in childhood, that curious question shall help in answering this deepest philosophical question of all time: who are we? That question is the very topic of our discussion: are we alone? This is the very question that astrobiology wants to cover, astrobiology tries to cover. Now, how will it help us? This question, even a single hint of life on other planets or other stars or other moons, wherever, will give us an idea of what else is possible. Is silicon based life form possible? Is phosphorus based life form possible? We can't even think of phosphorus based life forms. Maybe something like that is possible. Nobody is ruling out. But when we have an unambiguous evidence that yes, life is there, we can start asking what type of life are they? What are they made of? How are their culture? And that shall slowly point or hint towards the question: who are we in fact? Are we the only type of life that can exist? Or are we a special type of life form? So, this question is around for a few centuries, and only in the past few decades we have been able to make real progress in asking or trying to search for some of the answers. So, let's look at this picture again. Life is resilient. A few moments ago I said, but what do I exactly mean? That right Earth, the present Earth, shows a little portion of Western Europe. It is it has a significant portion of Greenland. So you see the contribution of plants is visible from outer space. The contributions of human aren't, that's a different question. But the contributions of plant on this planet is visible from outer space. Towards the left, I want to stress on this. Towards the left, the earth that you see, the atmosphere is nowhere close to what we have today. This is the composition. Now, methane, ammonia, water vapor were the most abundant gases in the early atmosphere. Today it's nitrogen and oxygen. How did it come about? How did the atmosphere of the entire planet change? Basically, this change happened only, once again I'm stressing on the fact, only life. The atmosphere of today is made by life. This is the timeline of some important events in the history of life. Now, right across this portion, the 3.5 billion years ago mark, the first prokaryotes appeared. What are prokaryotes? Prokaryotes are basically cells that don't have a very defined internal structure. They don't have a defined nucleus. They don't have defined internal organelles. So these prokaryotes first appeared 3.5 billion years ago. The first RNA I talked about appeared some 3.8 billion years ago. So after that, at some point near 3 billion years ago, a type of bacteria evolved called cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is very popular in evolutionary biology because that's the first bacteria capable of producing oxygen. Okay, oxygen. Today, we breathe oxygen. At that time, oxygen was a poison. Oxygen was the only thing that could catch fire on carbon based molecules. Whatever prokaryotic life there had been, oxygen was a threat to them. So, whenever there was some free oxygen out of their metabolic chemical reactions, they just threw them outside. And after that, the first eukaryotes evolved, the ones that have defined structure inside their cells. Those eukaryotes started to conduct their metabolic activities using that very oxygen that was poisonous to the primitive prokaryotic cells. This is the resilience I talked about, the resilience of life. Life literally found a way to use poison on its favor. For almost more than 2 billion years of evolution, life had been unicellular only. Why? This unicellular architecture had to be perfected first. Whichever unicellular organism failed to adapt to its environment, they died out. And whichever got adapted, they lived. So finally, after 2.3 billion years of prokaryotic evolution, the first multicellular eukaryotes evolved. Now, this was a great, very great achievement on part of life on this planet. Because a single celled organism, a single celled eukaryote is a very complex structure. Life used those single celled complex structures to build even more complex structures, the multicellular eukaryotes. That went on. More and more small animals started to evolve, small plants started to evolve, life went from water to land. Then comes the Cambrian explosion. This was again a great achievement, maybe not as great as the first eukaryote because that's on which the Cambrian explosion stands. But this was also a great achievement in terms of life on this planet because that was the first time life started to take over the entire place on this planet. Eventually, it happened and life spread out all over the planet. Now, imagine you made a project on your, suppose, on your laptop. You made a project of some 1,000 pages. It's a very huge project. It has to undergo a lot of planning, and now you're about to execute that 1,000 page planned project physically. And then the laptop gets wiped off from most of the data. What just happened? Most of your hard works just went in vain. How many of you have heard about the 5 mass extinction events on Earth? Let me see. How many of you have heard the 5 mass extinction events on Earth?
No, sir.
Okay. Raise your hands, please. Anyone? All right. The first of those 5 extinction events marked exactly what I am talking about, a complete wane of all the efforts that life made. The colonization of land happened some 500 million years ago, and the first extinction event some 445 million years ago, so only 50 million years approximately in between. Now, 50 million years compared to 4 billion years on this planet is very less. And in that particular extinction, the Ordovician extinction, 60 to 70% of life forms got extinct. That was a huge blow. I won't go into details of all the extinction events, but I want everyone to focus that this numbers, almost in every event, more than 60 to 75% of species got wiped out. In the Permian event, 95%. Even then, after five extinction events, today the planet is filled with life without leaving any spot non-living. Now, there is one interesting thing I want to mention here. This Devonian extinction, the cause says drastic drop in oxygen levels. There has been some papers that state that this particular extinction event happened due to an explosion of a star 80,000 light years away. How is that even possible? 80,000 light years away, a star exploded and 75% of population on Earth got extinct. Well, it's a topic in astrophysics called gamma ray burst. Fairly simple. The rotational axis of that star was aligned with the solar system. So when the star exploded, a huge burst of gamma rays rushed towards Earth and completely changed the chemistry of the atmosphere. That's why there had been drastic drop in oxygen levels, which killed so many species. Now, once again, after five major extinction events, life stands resilient. I won't talk about the sixth extinction event due to Homo sapiens because that's a topic completely dedicated to itself. So, this we come here once again. Primitive versus present Earth. I want you all to remember the chemistry. Primitive Earth had ammonia, methane, nitrogen, hydrogen, and water vapor. Look at this. This is the picture of Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, taken from 70 kilometers above the surface by the Huygens probe. There has been only one probe on Titan, that is this Huygens probe, that can't move, just it just fell out of the sky and it remained there. Titan is made up of these gases. Okay, there is no ammonia, there is no water vapor like Earth. So why am I even mentioning Titan? Why is it even important or why is it even significant in the study of astrobiology? Well, the fact is, after Earth, Titan is the second world in the solar system that has liquid oceans. It has liquid oceans as well as solid continents. Those liquid oceans are not made of water. Those liquid oceans are made of methane, CH4. However, because of this stunning similarity that there are continents and oceans, this makes Titan a special world. But that's not all. Remember, in the beginning, I said how when we look at the interstellar space, those interstellar clouds have a lot of complex carbon based molecules. Well, those complex molecules have a specific type, at least most of those molecules have a specific type called the tholins. Tholins, this term was first coined by Carl Sagan. Now, tholin, it was not like it was the it was this tholin thing did not actually become interesting only because it was there in interstellar space. Tholin actually became interesting when there was we saw the signs of tholins on Titan, right where this picture is taken, some 70 kilometers above the surface. This is where tholin actually is manufactured from nitrogen, methane, and hydrogen. It uses some of the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and tholins are manufactured, which it then rains on this moon, on the surface. So the very tholins that we find on Titan is found in interstellar space. Why is tholin so lovely? You add water to tholin and you get nuclear bases and amino acids, the starting material for DNA and proteins. So many scientists believe that tholins are the starting material of life on Earth as well, because as you remember, the primitive Earth had nitrogen, methane, hydrogen, and ultraviolet rays from the sun. Tholins are also prepared in labs using the very same process. So, in solar system, Titan is one of the most important worlds for the study of astrobiology. That doesn't mean it's the only one. But now I want to shift all of your focus to another system. Let's look at the TRAPPIST 1. The TRAPPIST 1 system is so much popular among astronomers. Like literally, if there is any astronomer around you and you go ask for this TRAPPIST 1 system, they will know it. Specifically, this is so popular because this TRAPPIST 1 system has all planets terrestrial. All of the planets of TRAPPIST 1 have solid ground. The solar system is not like that. Only the first four have solid ground, then the next four have gaseous fluid surface. Yeah, Pluto has solid ground, but now it's excluded from planet. But the point is, TRAPPIST 1 system gives us a huge opportunity to study the versatile nature of the possibilities. Maybe there is no life on TRAPPIST 1 also. But you see, I'll put up another slide. These are the details of TRAPPIST-1 system that we currently know of. TRAPPIST-1F has almost exactly the same radius as Earth, almost the same mass as Earth, a little less density and a little less acceleration due to gravity. Now, you might wonder, how is it similar to Earth when clearly this says that TRAPPIST-1 is so close to its star, 0.0385 astronomical units, while Earth is 1 astronomical units, which is huge compared to this number. Its temperature must be very high. It must be so hot that it can't sustain life, or at least life as we know it. Let's look back at this picture. The green portion shows the habitable zone around a planet. Around a star. That doesn't mean other portions are not habitable. This habitable zone is chosen only based on life as we know it. This habitable zone needs liquid water. There might be exotic life forms that does not need liquid water, that can survive in very high temperatures and that can be very close to the stars. But whenever we find some planet that is close to Earth, we don't actually hope that life is there. What we actually hope is by studying those planets, we will be able to understand Earth and ourselves in a better way. Now, the temperature of TRAPPIST-1F is close to that of Earth, even though TRAPPIST-1F is so close to the star. Why is it? Why is it? The answer is fairly simple but not really popular. All the stars are not same. There are very great variety of stars that are available in our galaxy and in other galaxy. There are very great variety of stars. We have classified those stars into several categories. The first category is the one that our sun is, yellow dwarf. Now, yellow dwarf stars are not really the hottest or the coldest or the largest or the smallest. Yellow dwarfs are somewhere in the middle. TRAPPIST 1 is a red dwarf star. Red color indicates that the star is a lot colder than sun. Whenever you see a rainbow, the colors towards the red side are colder than the colors towards the blue side. So red, whatever red stars are there, they are colder than sun. Now, colder than sun, which means the habitable zone will be closer to the TRAPPIST-1 star than the habitable zone of our own solar system is to the sun. So this was about TRAPPIST. Now I'll just take 1 minute for water and see if you have any questions before going to the most bizarre part of this session, the life inside the stars. That's the most bizarre. Okay, so I come back to the most bizarre part, magnetic monopoles. The fact is, we don't know if magnetic monopoles exist. String theory. I hope many of you have at least heard once in your life about this particular term, the string theory. String theory explains many of the astrophysical phenomena and the quantum phenomena that we currently observe. String theory says that right after the Big Bang, magnetic monopoles were around. They are not around anymore. But it also says that at very extreme conditions, magnetic monopoles might be preserved from the Big Bang. Those extreme conditions, for now, as we know, is only found at the heart of the stars. So it's something we can look forward to. Now, this string theory actually suggests something even more bizarre. What you see on screen, both of these are magnetic north poles. This is the concept called semipoles in string theory. Now, in order to explain everything, we will need days and days. There is something called topological defects, for which I have to explain topology, to explain where this thing comes from. But this semipole is a conjecture of string theory. Now, see, let's consider now. I don't know exactly what these semipoles are called. This is fairly very new concept. I don't know what they are called, but for now, let's have A and B for each. So there is a south A semipole, south B semipole, north A semipole, north B semipole. That blue one to the north, to the top left, let's call it south A, and the top right one let's call south B. The bottom left one north B, bottom right one north A. Now, why are these north and north connected and south connected? Well, string theory also says that these north and north poles repel each other but are connected by hyperdimensional strings. Again, hyperdimensional strings, if I explain, it will need topological defects. But the basic thing is that these two semipoles are connected by something we can't see. So, similarly, the South Pole and North Pole both are similar. Let's look how really these can form life. First, what are the basic what are the basic needs of life? What must be there if we want to say that okay, life is possible and life might flourish? What must be there? Let's see. The mandatory and sufficient conditions for life. The first one is there must be the whatever we call living that must have the ability to encode and decode information. I am coming to how we encode and decode information, but let's see the rest. Life must be able to replicate faster than breaking down. Fairly obvious, or else there will not be chance to evolve into better beings. There must be energy source that is available constantly for thermodynamic use. So let's understand these one by one and compare it for ourselves and for this, for whatever bizarre thing we are talking. This is how life on Earth encodes information. The DNA and RNA actually, these two molecules are used only to encode information and decode, of course. The RNA actually decodes the information stored in DNA. What I want you to focus is this DNA molecule has only four types of nuclear bases. Only four types. The arrangement of these four types actually stores information. There are billions of such arrangements in a single molecule of DNA. That's how we ourselves store information. What information is stored? Everything. Starting from birth, how we live, what we do for living, and how we react, all our emotions, all how to make each and every part of our body, every minute detail is stored in these molecules. Now, how might the magnetic North Pole and South Pole bond store this thing? The magnetic North A and North B are connected by hyperdimensional strings. South A and South B are connected by hyperdimensional strings. North A and South B are actually attracting each other through magnetic force that we already know, but because they're very close, the intensity of that force will be huge. So we might see something like this. All the strands, observe, this is a south-south pair. This is a north-north pair, repelled but joined by the string. Now this is shown as a string, but this is simply magnetic attraction. So these are the ways how information can be encoded. Now what might this particular thing encode? I cannot say this is a molecule, of course, but whatever this is, what type of information will it encode? It will encode everything. How to replicate itself, how to replicate the entire creature before it dies, everything, how the creature shall behave throughout its lifetime, everything. So we come to the second point. How do they, how can they replicate faster than breaking down? Well, for us, we on Earth, the DNA contains the information about how to reproduce an entire organism. But this, what you see right here, is how the DNA itself replicates. This is the most key part, and this is all we need to know. If we know how the DNA replicates, the DNA itself will contain how to replicate the entire organism. So this DNA, this is the parent DNA towards the right. The middle portion gets, I'm not going into the details of all enzymes, but the middle portion from where those bases are joined, that is ripped off, and those individual strands which look a bit like RNA but are not, these individual strands are once again joined by this DNA polymerase. So this is how the replication of DNA happens for us. Now, probably exactly the same mechanism can be applied for this magnetic DNA. Now, I call it magnetic DNA. This is not an official term. Just for convenience, I call it magnetic DNA. So, this might also get broken at those strings which are connected, and that will look something like this. This looks like magnetic RNA, but we don't know. Maybe it will be a magnetic RNA, maybe it won't. Until any evidence comes, we won't know. The final point is the availability of energy source for thermodynamic use. It's obvious for us, this is the energy source. The sun. The sun provides light and heat, and that is enough for life to flourish on Earth. Whatever energy we need for our metabolism and for our other activities, everything, the sun is enough. Now, what the picture I showed before about that um, magnetic DNA, physics says that this particular structure is not stable, but it does not matter as long as it can replicate itself before disintegrating. This particular thing is stable, I mean, at least more stable than nothing, more stable than nothing only at the cores of stars. The immense pressure and the temperature will sort of keep it like that and try not to annihilate the north and south poles. So, at that portion, theory suggests that there will be enough energy available. Now, if such an activity happens inside a star, the star will cool down because the star actually radiates light and heat outwards. The entire energy of the star flows from inside of the star to the outside of the star. So from the core it starts where nuclear fusion happens. From the core of the stars, light and heat starts getting outwards. So the surface of the star is whatever we see on the surface of the star, that too is a result of what is happening on the core. So if that life form is using the energy of the star, then there will be not much of energy left to this. I mean, if there is such activity going on inside the star and that's taking up some energy, we will see a decrease in the energy that is sent to us from the star. So, suppose we expect a star to be yellow, like our sun, and it is red, we might be actually looking at a star with life. Now, there are some stars in the catalog that actually resemble these kind of behaviors. But again, we cannot say for sure that such life exists on this star. Why? Firstly, there are other explanations. Secondly, string theory is not confirmed. Even though there are lots and lots of observations that actually say that string theory is the correct theory, but not all, and we need much more observations to confirm string theory and as well to confirm the existence of magnetic monopoles. Still now, this is a hypothesis. Someday, it might be real. However, the first sign of life that we receive, we have no idea. It might be something that we discussed so far, it might be something completely removed. Might be that the first sign of life that we receive, no scientist would have ever thought of that. Like initially I said phosphorus based life form, nobody thinks of that. So we have to keep an open mind while we go on with this journey, and we also have to focus, we also have to build on ideas, because this particular thing, the concept of life inside a star, that was a very, very creative thinking on their part who wrote the paper, because there has not been any evidence that suggests it. So we shall keep exploring and keeping an open mind. We shall keep bringing new ideas to this world. With this, I end the presentation. Questions. Please go on asking questions in the chat. I will look at it. This is a quote from Carl Sagan himself. And okay, I won't say anything about it. First, questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Akash. That was a wonderful session. I hope the participants also liked it, especially the part of the possibility of finding life in the monopoles. I really loved that part. So, participants, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions, or you can type it in the chat box. Mr. Akash, there is actually one question from the participant in the chat box. The question is why these monopoles are connected. So, would you like to answer?
Why are the magnetic monopoles connected? That is a concept from topological defects. It's very hard to explain in this level, but it is for now the basic funda is these monopoles, these two semipoles, they repel each other and they are connected by hyperdimensional strings. These strings are zero-dimensional topological defects, one-dimensional topological defects. Then monopoles themselves are zero-dimensional. Anything else? Topological fragment already answered. Okay. Anyone else wants to ask anything? Now that it's over, you can even put on your mic and ask.
If you guys have any other questions like related, basically related to astrobiology, you can even ask those questions. Okay, some questions regarding those like basic doubts. So just go ahead and unmute yourself. You're most welcome to unmute yourself and ask any question that you have. We would surely love to answer all your queries.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Akash sir previously mentioned that the presence of tholin in Titan, the star of Saturn, it can get decomposed into methane, nitrogen, and others. And we can also find similar kind of happening in Earth also. Tholin is not really a liquid, but in Earth we can find liquid. And also there are few compositions that were present in primitive Earth. So how can they be really related? Is it just because of the connection in the solar system or because of the temperatures? So I would like to know that.
Got it. See, tholins are the type of compounds that if you add tholin to water, they give they give the nucleotide bases and those amino acids, the starting material for proteins. So this is the main importance. We have actually, I mean, we doesn't mean we, but we humans have actually performed this experiment in several labs. At Caltech, there is one lab where such an experiment was conducted, and there this particular thing was observed that when you add tholin to water, they do give these nuclear bases and amino acids. So it is interesting because we find tholin all across the universe, even on Titan, even in interstellar space. So if there is water somewhere, if there is water somewhere, then on that particular world, these tholins might even fall from the atmosphere and dissolve in the water and become these nucleotide bases. Now, if the nucleotide bases are formed, that doesn't mean immediately RNA will be formed, but that's the thing that gives life a possibility. Got it?
Yes, got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, if you guys don't have any further questions, then shall we conclude the meet? Okay, so I think no more further questions. So we'll conclude the meet over here. Thank you so much, all the participants, for joining the meet. Keep updated. Follow our page on social medias. Follow our Scienceoverse, and you will receive all the updates for our future talks and events. So do join the future events. We will see you all.